Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is January 7th. Happy Monday, I hope. Beginning of the work week. We have a lot to talk about tonight. A couple weather headlines, a little bit of current events on the weather. But first, let's start with SPACEWEATHER.com. Solar wind speed sitting at 444.6 kilometers per second with a density of 6.2. Taking a look at the sun. One spot still hanging around, AR 2732. Now this is departing, but we saw some activity from this sunspot yesterday. In fact, we tracked a couple of B-class flares and a minor C-class flare as this thing was turning around the western limb of our star. And as you see, the solar proton flux, solar X-ray flux, everything's kind of calmed down and back to quiet, should we say. Taking a look at sunspot number 12, still impressive now. We are at day 7 of 2019, and we still have not had a sunspot. So this is being a persistent sunspot. TCI at 36.1 billion watts. Let's show you a quick picture of the pink auroras. And a lot of pink was showing up I think it was last night or the night before. Let's see what the date of this was. January 6th, when we had the accelerated solar winds, a brief moment of G1 activity. And we've discussed this before on this channel, which is pink represents nitrogen in the atmosphere. And we all know what nitrogen does. Thank you very much. All right, here we go. Like I said, TCI at 36.1 billion watts. Our KP is quiet with the 2. 24-hour max was a 3. And here's a look right now at our sun's corona. Not a lot happening. Take a look at the SDO in motion. That corona hole closing up, moving away from Earth. As you guys can see over here, I'm going to scoot it over to the western limb and we'll watch these solar flares. There was the first one, and there was 2 more right there at the end as it departs away from Earth. 1, 2, 3. So intense little bit of action. Thankfully that was non-Earth facing. And let's take a look at that, actually the CMEs simultaneously here. Just want to show everybody this was a coronal mass ejection away from the Earth. So this will not be affecting Earth in any way whatsoever. Nothing to worry about, folks. As you see it go into motion, a big ball of gas firing off from the sun. Taking a look at Space Weather Live now, where we want to take a look at the whole perspective of our sunspots right now. We have some minor activity in the region above the equator around the -180. Other than that, it's all quiet. Not even a single giant coronal hole area to even speak of at this time. Here we have the TSI for December 30th, 2018, actually the 29th. It came in at a 1360.7004. And also, we want to note that it did peak while we did not have a show the last couple of days. It did peak on the 29th as well at 1360.733, dropped down to a 1360.67, but back up, the last reading is 1360.7004. So only a few times have we seen the TSI measurements go 1360.7 here in the last several weeks. All right, let's get right into some headlines. Level 4 avalanche warning in the Alps after blizzards claim 10 lives. More heavy snow in the forecast. At least 10 people have died in Europe as snowstorms swept through much of the continent over the weekend. At least 7 deaths have been reported in the Alps and 3 in the Greece. How about 3 in Greece? Several people remain missing, including 4 in Norway. Avalanche risk in the northern Alps remains at level 4. That's the second highest, with another round of heavy snow in the forecast. Obviously, dropping huge amounts of snow, straining residents and causing severe disruptions. Snowstorms brought by Andre and avalanches claimed lives at least 10 people, according to the BBC. Two separate avalanches killed two German skiers in Austria's Vorarlberg Mountains. A third skier died in the Pangu district near Salzburg. In Bavaria, a skier died when a tree collapsed near Bad Tolz, and the avalanche killed a young woman in Bavaria's Tenzenberg Mountains. Two climbers died in the Italian Alps, and at least 3 people in Greece after they had lost control over their vehicle during a snowstorm. Several people remain missing. Additionally, 4 tourists from Finland and Sweden were presumed dead on January 4th, 2 days after they were feared to have been swept away by an avalanche in the Norwegian region of the Troms. ORF reported that 600 residents and tourists were still stuck in the Austrian village and following a road closure. An Austrian army helicopter managed to drop some supplies there on Sunday. Other villages in the Alps have also been cut off by snow-blocked roadways. It says here it's been a week of intensive, excessive snowfall across the northern Alps, and more precisely across eastern Switzerland and northern Austria. Locally, 100 to 200, now 3 to 6.5 feet of snow has been reported from several areas. This is a week's worth of snow, folks. You know, a lot of people lately, not as much last couple days, but last week especially, asking a lot of questions. Where is this so-called snow? Blah, blah, blah. It's not cold. It's mild. And meanwhile, this is happening on the other side of the pond. Imagine getting a 3.5 to 6 feet of snow. Now, I know people that live in Buffalo have seen 8 feet of snow in 42 hours or less. I get that. But this is a little bit different out here. For this much snow to fall this quickly and this much intense snowfall. This week's weather pattern will dump huge amounts of snow once again across northern Austria, parts of extreme South Germany, and East Switzerland, with already, again, 3.5 to 6.5 feet of snow in place from the previous days. This will significantly enhance snow avalanche threat and develop life-threatening situation for some of the alpine valleys. On southerly side of the Alps, persistent north-northwesterly flow in the precipitation gap due to phone effect and region will be missing any kind of precipitation. Guys, this is getting a little serious. The snow is already as deep as it is, and it looks like they're going to get just as much, if not more, the rest of this week. We'll leave the link in the description. Tons of pictures, video footage, snow covering people. I mean, Mari, you've seen snowfall this high before, where you go to bed and you've got snowfall that's up to about 2 inches of your tires of your car, and then you wake up the next morning and your car is underneath snow. I mean, what was that like?
I haven't had it that much, but certainly I've woke up, gone to bed with 5 inches on the ground, and woke up to easily 8 feet. Sitting there, you look out the window, you can barely see out your front door, and there's just like the roads are covered with just it's just snow, and you can't see any cars because the snow is like 2 feet over every car roof on the block. It is, I love snow, so I get excited in big storms like this, but I'm always prepared very well for storms like this. It's so unfortunate when there is a loss of life. What gets scary is when people have no access to medicine, emergency services, and all that.
Yeah.
It's super serious, and seeing these images is sort of...
This guy is shoveling 6 feet of snow off of the top of the roof of this building. Maybe higher. I mean, this guy could be 6 foot.
Very dangerous.
The drift could be 7.5 feet up there.
Very, very dangerous.
So what we're looking at, guys, and this is not an exaggeration here, but this is some serious grand solar minimum-ish type snowfall. And when I keep telling people this is just the tip of the iceberg, this is nothing. This is just for a week or two in this area. But wait until we get into the full swing of this, where it's possible there could be areas on this planet that see this kind of snowfall for months. I'm not saying all over the globe, but there will be regions once we get deep into this minimum, and this is the kind of stuff that you could expect. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because it was reported that 2009, the minimum back in 2009, 2010, was one of the deeper minimums of the century. And therefore, I think it exposed a lot of cosmic rays to the Earth. And this current minimum is expected to be deeper than the last one, which will bring more cosmic rays. And I think you know where I'm going with this. The more cosmic rays, I think the more situations like what we're looking at right here is going to happen. So imagine 10 years from now, 11 years from now, in 2030, when this thing really gets going, seriously going. Like I said, we're only seeing the tip. This kind of snowstorm happening just for a couple of weeks. This is just the tip of what you can expect when you're inside of a deep grand solar minimum, and at the rate of cosmic ray exposure that our planet is enduring right now. It's scary to me to think about what 15 years from now, 20 years from now, what kind of snowstorms, catastrophic, if you see snow like this for weeks, because now you have to ask yourself, okay, we can do it this week. Week 2, all right, we're getting there. We're still shoveling snow out, but where are you putting the snow? Where are you putting the snow at week 3? If you're getting 3 to 6 feet of snow a week, and it continues to fall for several weeks, where are you going to put the snow? There's going to be some serious problems here, and I hope that this is short-lived. I hope that maybe the rest of this pattern will play out this week, and it dies out and things get a little bit more back to normal here. But scary times indeed. Our thoughts and prayers with this region. We hope for the best over there, but it does look like these people have been through stuff like this before, but very dangerous stuff when it comes to shoveling snow anywhere from top of the buildings or even just trying to get your car dug out. I saw a picture today of a gentleman who left his phone in the car, and it took him 2.5 hours to get to a point where he can actually get inside the car to get his phone. I mean, stuff like that. We got to be a little more prepared. You could easily get in trouble just from shoveling snow for 2.5, 3 hours straight. You may not be in the greatest of health. You could have heart problems, all kinds of things, hypothermia, frostbitten if you're not protected. So it's very, very important that we follow the warnings. And I think some of these accidents might have happened because there's people that are experienced climbers, experienced skiers. They've been exposed to severe winter weather, but maybe this one was a little bit too much. So we'll keep an eye on this. Watcher.news did a great job at covering this story. And over here in the West Coast today, reported on the Watcher, a strong West Coast winter storm leaves about 350,000 homes without power, traps cars in mudslide, wind gusts of excessive of 60 miles an hour, down trees and power lines, leaving more than 300,000 people without power in Washington, the majority in King, Pierce, Thurston counties, and tens of thousands in California on January 5th and 6th, 2019. By early Monday, January 7th, the number of customers without power still stood at 77,000 in Washington and over 55,000 in California. We're talking about over 120,000 people still without power. Strong winds picked up virtually instantaneously across Oregon and Washington and gusted as high as 84 miles per hour on Abernathy Mountain in Washington, 79 miles an hour in Mount Hebo in Oregon. The winds have subsided in the Pacific Northwest by early morning, January 6th, but authorities still urge residents to use extreme caution to avoid coming into contact with active power lines. Heavy rain overnight in California forced authorities to issue a flood warning and advisory in the Los Angeles areas. Mudslides flooding there closed several roads, caught up several cars and debris, but there are no deaths or injuries reported at this time. The storm dumped more than 3 inches of rain in Marin County, triggering a flood along San Francisco's Great Highway. The National Weather Service station in Kentfield registered around 3.86 inches of rain. San Rafael measured 3.32, and Napa put in 2.36 inches of rain. Near whiteout blizzard conditions were reported in the Sierra, disrupting traffic and forcing authorities to issue avalanche warnings for Lake Tahoe, south in the Sierra, along the California-Nevada line, valid from 12 local time, January 6th, to 7 local time, January 7th. At least 2 feet of snow was reported at Mammoth Mountain and more than a foot in the upper elevations around Tahoe. Not anywhere near as bad as what we're seeing in Europe right now, but still, heavy snow indeed. This is the time of the year that we see this. But this part of the country with the wildfires and the floods and the mudslides and now avalanches, this is pictures that we were used to seeing overseas, and now we are starting to see more and more of these here at home in the United States. Again, I'll leave the link in the description. Shallow 5.9 earthquake injures 75 people, damages buildings and farms in Gillian Garb, Kermanshah, Iran. Just wanted to report on the headline, a 5.9 earthquake. We had a 6.0 in Alaska. We had a 7.0 last night in Indonesia. Here, this is one dimension, not very deep at all. 6.2 miles deep. Not that deep at all. Things are definitely picking up. And, I think this would be a time here I want to talk about scientists link underwater eruptions to climate change. Now, I'm showing you the article about the earthquake, and then I'm quickly changing gears to underwater eruptions, and they're making the connection now for climate change. But the significance, in opinion of many, is what is happening to the core of our planet due to cosmic radiation. Cosmic rays going right to the core of our planet, causing these volcanic and earthquakes. But I saw this article today, and this was the second aha article today for me. Penelope from our Facebook group shares lots of information. If I could probably do 2 or 3 more shows from the articles that she shares in a day, but this one and another one today caught my attention. Scientists link underwater eruptions to climate change. Interesting theory that we're talking about this. The climate-driven risen and fall of sea level during the past million years matches up with valleys and ridges on the seafloor, suggesting ice ages influence underwater volcanic eruptions. And what they're saying here is the conditions that happen during these ice ages also happen to be during solar minimums as well, with, again, more of an abundance of cosmic radiation, cosmic rays, going straight to our core, causing more volcanic eruptions, more magma movement. And this statement here, to me, is mainstream media linking up the volcanic connection in cooling, not just above ground, but underground as well. But I think here they're talking about the warming of the waters here. 2 new studies reveal, and because volcanic chains spread across 37,000 miles on the ocean floor, the eruptions could pump out enough carbon dioxide gas to shift planetary temperatures, the study author suggests. Now, again, our oceans emit a lot of CO2. More than what man puts in the atmosphere. Another prime reason, or a prime example of how our oceans emit carbon dioxide, CO2 from these underwater volcanic eruptions, keeping temperatures warm, and we see the result in the ocean emitting more CO2. But this does not confirm that CO2 is warming the planet, and I'll talk about that here just in a second when I show you this other article. New oceanic crust is born at underwater volcanic chains called spreading ridges, where molten rock rises to fill the gap between moving tectonic plates. Scientists think that as the plates pull away from spreading ridges, new crust cools, cracks, and sinks, creating gaps between the lines of volcanoes, which are carried away from the ridge with the plate. These parallel volcanic ridges and valleys are some of the most visible features on Earth's ocean's floor. It goes on to talk about the study at the East Pacific Rise Spreading Ridge found the connection between ice age cycles and these seafloor corrugations that extend back 800,000 years. The bands of thicker and thinner crust correspond to 100,000-year ice age cycles. When glaciers expand and sea level dropped, more lava oozed from the ridge volcanoes, the Tolstoy discovered. The thinnest crust which formed when eruptions slowed matches up with eras of high sea level. Not because our glaciers are melting, because of the lava molten that is creating the sea level rise from underground volcano eruptions. Makes sense to me. I'll leave the link in the description, guys. And again, bravo. This article actually came out on mainstream, believe it or not, folks, in February of 2015. The source was Live Science, but still, they wanted to feature this. And I think they featured this story for the wrong reason. They're blaming this on climate change, warming. They think that well, it doesn't matter what they think. At least they didn't blame this one on man. So they got it half right, in my opinion, on this article. And now it points towards what we're saying, 2019, and it's doing the opposite of what they were saying just 3 years ago, which it's not warming the atmosphere. It's not warming the climate. Interesting stuff. The other article that gets a little deeper here. Actually, I'll get to that here in a second. A little bit of update for weather in the Northeast. It's going to be a little bit of everything starting tonight. Folks up here in the New York area, upstate, looking at a mix into some snow tonight. There's a chance we'll see a glaze of ice underneath 1 to 3 inches of snow for parts of upstate New York. Tuesday's unsettled again. The Northeast is going to be a little bit of a mess. Temperatures will be slightly milder in upstate New York, but still cold enough to snow in parts of northern New England, Maine as well. Rain behind this front, and Tuesday night, of course, temperatures get cold enough, and it's going to be a mess again with ice falling overnight, intermittent rain in Pennsylvania and New York City, but upstate New York and parts of New England and Maine are going to see icy mix and snow. Now, 3 to 6 inches of snow will fall across northern New England. And this is according to AccuWeather meteorologist Brett Rathburn. Since precipitation is likely to just be snow for the duration of this event, snow totals may excess 6 inches in a few localized areas of northern New England. That means skiers can look forward to plenty of fresh snow. And trust me, guys, that has kind of been like the talk of the town when you're looking at these local newspaper articles, is the lack of snow, the lack of ski resorts having business, the lack of snowmobilers getting out their snowmobiles this year. It's just not happening. And I've been saying this for about a week or two. Winter is late, and that's it, folks. It's coming. The forecasts are showing us now exactly when it's coming, and I'll get to that here just at the end of our broadcast. But switching gears real quick, Weather Channel, I read this interesting piece here about the 5 top things about 2019 about our climate. And they had some interesting things to say. They also agree with me, or I agree with them maybe. The coldest and snowiest months of the year are January and February in much of the United States based on long-term climatological averages. It says here, all of the lower 48 states are forecast to be near or above average during the 7-day period spanning January 11th through the 17th, according to NOAA's 8 to 14 day temperature outlook on Thursday. Later in January or February, however, there is a chance of colder weather could return. And they show the latest outlook once again from January through March, and it looks like it's below average in most parts of the country. And according to this meteorologist, he says here everything is still on track for a notably cold, stormy late winter period in the eastern, southern U.S., especially in February, said Dr. Todd Crawford, chief meteorologist with the weather company. A sudden stratospheric warming event may also help to increase possibilities of the high latitude blocking that would favor a colder late winter. Stratosphere is the layer of the atmosphere where 6 to 30 miles above the ground, above the troposphere, where most of the weather with which you're familiar occurs. A sudden stratospheric is when the stratosphere warms sharply 50 degrees Fahrenheit or more in just a few days. This is miles above the surface of Earth. An SSW appeared to be in progress during the last few days of 2018 into early January. It could take a few days to a few weeks for a SSW to produce high latitude blocking and weather impacts near the ground. Again, it's only been a week since this event had started. So I'm glad to see the Weather Channel talks about the polar vortex might weaken soon. Need more convincing that it could turn colder and snowier in the heart of winter? Major northeast snowstorms such as nor'easters and other coastal storms have a distinct peak in late January or February, according to NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information. They don't really talk about the cold. They bring it up. They kind of move on. They start talking about tornadoes, and we were successful without that. And then they talk about how El Niño is going to affect our weather right now. They're trying to compare whether or not they can compare this to the last El Niño event, which they can't. But there are several important events here, and stronger than average wind shear was present in the Caribbean in 2018 without an official El Niño, which suppressed development there, but not elsewhere in the Atlantic. Even if you get El Niño, it matters where the warming occurs. In this case, the warming might be more in the central Pacific south of Hawaii rather than in the eastern equatorial Pacific known as Modoki El Niños. These could actually lead to less wind shear over the Atlantic basin and a less hostile environment for tropical storms and hurricanes, which explains what's happened, why we have seen less tornadoes as well. So we can blame it on this Eldaki situation, Modoki El Niño. I guess we could call it Eldaki for short. That's better than saying Modoki El Niño. Let's just call it the Eldaki. From now on here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, we will now acknowledge the Modoki El Niño as Eldaki. Jacob Balch reporting live on Grand Solar Minimum.
Oh, what's wrong with you?
Will there be another year in terrible wildfire in California? Oh, it's too early to know. Well, you really can't predict these things. This will be the one event I will blame man for on some of these wildfires, and I mean carelessness, not intentional. Maybe some of these are intentional. I don't want to start any conspiracy theories. Forget El Niño. Stormfest is about to hit the West Coast. Well then, it says here, things often calm down after January 1st during El Niño years, but not this year, with the U.S. West Coast from Central California to Washington State about to be pummeled by a series of storms. Rain, snow, wind, plenty for everyone. And here he's showing these wave after wave after wave low pressure systems. And I'm not trying to be like Thor News, but look at this. We have 1, 2, 3 systems. And I picked this story up tonight because this is not new. The last couple of weeks have been just system after system after system. So We are now taking notice, Northwest Pacific. But thanks to What's Up With That for the warnings, putting a little bit of attention to this area, because we're already talking about mudslides and floods in California, the Northwest, tons of moisture. Look at this. Here we go. The silver lining to all of this is it will provide an immense amount of water to fill the reservoirs and enhance our snowpack. A snowpack that is now pretty decent shape. Water sources should be fine next summer. Okay. That is the silver lining of all of this. I get you. If there is one. But I'm sure folks are getting a little tired of the constant low pressure systems that continue to bombard the Northwest. Here was the other article today that I saw that really kind of opened my eyes a little bit as well. And this was the second article from Penelope on our Facebook group. Climate scientists misapplied basic physics. A mistaken climate model architecture changes everything. Heat trapped by increasing carbon dioxide just reroutes to space from water vapor instead. And they explain in this article, this paper, that, well, I'll just read it. But the scare over carbon dioxide was just due to simple modeling error. A whole category of feedbacks was omitted, which greatly exaggerated the calculated sensitivity to carbon dioxide. It says here, the scientists who believe in the carbon dioxide theory of global warming do so essentially because of the application of basic physics to climate by a model that is ubiquitous. Oh, I had this word spelled out earlier today. Ubiquitous?
That word always gets me, Jake.
I hate that word.
Just put your fingers in front of your mouth and go blah, 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 and then it just will be over with.
Yeah,
and
you know,
move on from
but
But see,
a model that is ubiquitous in traditional climate science. This model is rarely named, but it is sometimes referred as the force-feeding feedback framework, explicitly called for the force-feeding feedback model. So we'll just call it FFM. Here, this pen and paper model estimates the sensitivity of global temperatures to increasing carbon dioxide. The FFM has serious architectural errors. Fixing the architecture while keeping the physics shows future warming due to increased carbon dioxide will be a fifth to a tenth of the current official estimates. That's less than 20% of global warming since 1973 was due to increasing carbon dioxide. The large computerized climate models, GSMs, are indirectly tailored to compute the same sensitivity to carbon dioxide as the FFM. Both explain 20th century warming as driven mostly by increasing carbon dioxide. Increasing carbon dioxide traps more heat, but that heat mainly just reroutes to space from water vapor. This all happens in the high atmosphere, so it has little effect on Earth's surface. Let me repeat this. Increasing carbon dioxide traps more heat, but that heat mainly just reroutes to space from water vapor instead. This all happens high in the atmosphere, so it has little effect on the Earth's surface where we live, as humans. Current climate models omit this rerouting. Rerouting cannot occur in the FFM due to its architecture. Rerouting is in its blind spot. What? I mean, that's a pretty big omission right here. This fact that's kept out of these modeling. Increasing carbon dioxide traps heat, but that heat mainly just reroutes to space. It all happens in so high that it has little effect on Earth's surface. So this article here, this is a really great breakdown of everything. Omitting feedbacks are not temperature dependent. How the greenhouse effect works here. I'm going to read this one real quick. Heat radiated to space, outgoing long-wave radiation, or OLR, is mostly emitted by four disparate emission layers: the water vapor emissions layer, the CO2 emissions layer, cloud tops, and the surface. The hotter a layer, the more it emits. This so-called greenhouse effect exists because OLR is emitted from an emission layer high in the atmosphere where it is cold, rather than from the surface where it is warm. The total emissions must equal the heat absorbed from the sun and has to be emitted somehow. So the surface is much warmer than it would be if most of the OLR wasn't emitted from high in the cold atmosphere. Again, great article, great paper. For those of you who are new to this channel, this topic, I highly recommend this article. This would be a great stepping stone in understanding what we're saying. When you hear people from our side of the fence talk about how carbon dioxide has little to do with our atmosphere and our temperature, this is what they mean. This is what they mean. That all this happens so high above the surface that it goes out to space. It does not return to Earth. Leave the link in the description. Again, great read today. I learned a lot, and I think this is, the more you read it, the better understanding you will have as well. But when you look at things like this, a mistake in the climate model architecture changes everything. Heat trapped by increasing carbon dioxide just reroutes to space from water vapor instead. That was one of the things that made me want to read this thing over and over again, to understand where they're coming from with this. The scare over carbon dioxide was just due to a simple model erring. So this article that was written up here is not trying to attack or ad hominem AGW. It's just saying, look, they followed their models. And the reason why they're overhyping this is because they were just following the model and there's an error in the model. This is how you present science to people. This is how you present your case to someone without being aggressive, without calling names. And I've reported on this several times on this broadcast, where you've got people in politics who think they understand climate change, who think they understand what causes it and what doesn't. And then the ad hominem attacks come from its supporters, from its fanatics, I should say. They're fanatics. Speaking of fanatics, old Jesse over there at BP calls them Democrats, but Nancy Pelosi says here, we must face the extensional threat of our time, the climate crisis. We. Pointing this out. Speaker Nancy Pelosi brought up the issue in her opening address while touting a new select panel to come up with ideas on how to solve it. And the Energy and Commerce Committee announced that climate change would be the subject of its very first hearing this year. Guess who is going to be the leader of this organization? Oh, this is great. Alexandria Cortez. That's right. Our beloved, I can't afford an apartment in D.C. yet, Congresswoman, who thought she was going to be inaugurated on January 3rd. Anyway, meanwhile, President Donald Trump and Republicans who control the Senate have shown no interest in pursuing dramatic reductions in carbon emissions. And really, the last two articles we just discussed with the underground volcanoes and trying to explain to you where all the CO2 comes from, the ocean, the volcano eruptions, and then showing you the simple error and the misunderstanding about greenhouse effects and what's really happening. And you factor all that, and this is why Donald Trump and Republicans don't have any interest in pursuing any dramatic reductions in carbon. CO2 is life, first of all. They know that. Everyone knows that. That's basic. again, the reason why the Republicans and the president is willing to listen to this side of the science is because this is the way you present information to the opposition. The scare over carbon dioxide was just due to a simple modeling error, claims this paper. Not saying the dumbasses over at the AGW are stupid shits and had an error in the modeling, but they didn't give a shit. No one wants to listen to that. How are you going to convince anybody of anything if you're going to talk to them like that and make them feel stupid? They were just misled. Simple modeling error. They didn't have a full understanding. I like the way they present this information in this article. But that's how it's being communicated to Donald Trump and the Republicans. Meanwhile, guys, I think we can all agree these Democrats have lost their damn minds. Big time. The Democrats' change in tone is evident in the name of the new panel. It is now called the Select Committee on Climate Crisis, compared to a focus on energy independence and global warming. When Democrats formed a similar panel, was formed a decade ago. And we talked about that in an article a few weeks ago. Oh, what was that organization called? I can't remember.
What?
A panel they started and then abruptly shut down. But anyway, back to this. We must, she says, face the existential threat of our time. The climate crisis, Pelosi said in her opening address to Congress. The entire Congress must work to put an end to the inaction and denial of science that threaten the planet in the future. Progressives, led by part Alexandria Cortez from New York, are tugging the caucus into a more urgent posture that they said best reflects what scientists have called for adverse climate change. This is nuts. So, I guess what this is all coming down to, folks, and I'll let you take a look at this yourself here in this article. We better put our thick skin on, because it's going to be a very long 2 years until the next round of elections. I reported a couple of nights ago that Fox News had reported with Mark Moreno that climate change is going to be the new campaign slogan for the 2020 elections. And more evidence of that definitely happening here, especially in this article here. And I want to thank What's Up With That for not including a picture of Nancy Pelosi. We do not need to be reminded of what the devil looks like. Okay, so taking a look. Oh, it's refreshing because I expired this page. Currently, the area of weather that we are watching, if this will ever load, and it won't ever load. Oh, look. It's an advert for the NFL shop, Mari. How clever. And it's all Browns. So let's take a look. Snow moving through upstate New York as we speak. Rochester, Buffalo, you guys just had some weather that came through the area.
Your birthday is coming up, Jake.
It
and
is.
We have to go shopping there.
Hey, I like that Baker t-shirt. Other than that, guys, we don't have a whole bunch of weather rolling through our country right now. Northern California, you're still battling some shower activity. Nothing too heavy, but any rain right now is probably not welcome after the storm situation that we had out there. And there will be more to come, unfortunately. Before I get into the weather, I wanted to show you guys this. Check this out. So the orange is 2019. Pull out the handy dandy little, look at this. Look at the ice extent growth. It is skyrocketing right now, folks. Compared to where we were last year, how this just kind of meandered its way through the beginning of the year, especially in the coldest time of the year, and it didn't really grow. Let's take away the 18 line. See where we were for 17. I mean, even 17, we started right about the same as where we are now, and did not see any kind of growth that we're seeing right now at this point here in 2019, with 13.059 millions of square kilometers of Arctic sea ice extent in the north. So definitely an impressive beginning to 2019 as far as sea ice extent. So not worried about any kind of ice melting as we take a look at the current situation. This was as of January 6th. Ice is filling up very nicely. In fact, almost ice all the way up to every orange line that we are actually looking at, and then some. There is some surplus ice as well. All right, so let's take a look at the GFS long-term outcome forecast here. And like we talked about in the beginning of this show, more rain to the Northern California region, more snow and rain and mixed precipitation to the Washington, Oregon region as well. Rain to come back tomorrow after we get a clip of light snow tonight here in the northeast, upstate New York. But believe it or not, the temperatures will rise slightly overnight into tomorrow, and this will turn to rain for the most part. And here in the eastern northeast, we'll see rain. The entire state of Michigan finally gets a chance at snow showers, some of it actually in the lower part of the state that might accumulate. And then as we cross across Lake Erie, western New York, the south towns of Buffalo, expecting some lake effect snow, and heavy lake effect snow, I might add, as we will continue to monitor the situation. Now, Wednesday, January 9th, the rest of the state of New York will also pick up on some more snow showers. And then look at the northwest. Another mess of a low pressure system coming in. So a possibility of a quick 1 to 3 in the northeast after tonight's and tomorrow's snow and rain. And I think the snow that we're seeing that's persistent here in western New York and parts of central New York is due to that cold front that we are going to get here after Wednesday afternoon. And I do believe that's lake effect snow, and that's why we continue to see that blue in western New York. Go back to the northwest because this is too important not to monitor over here, guys. So Wednesday, January 9th, more snow, more rain, a little bit of everything into Northern California, into Washington, into Oregon. And then things kind of quiet down just a little bit on Friday, the 11th. And then a pretty big size, a low pressure system begins. And this is where my friends and family in southwestern Ohio should start paying attention. January 11th. We start to see this low pressure system advancing from the southwest, and it's running into some colder air, and it's going to be part of this Arctic blast that we're going to get from this polar vortex disruption. Now, Saturday, January 12th, this storm gets its act together. Parts of Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, southern parts of Indiana, southwest Ohio, northern Kentucky, you guys will see the heaviest of this snow. And believe it or not, Dayton looking like 1 to 3, Cincinnati, you look like you're going to be picking up the 3 to 5, and the further south you go, the more heavier the snow will be. Northern Kentucky may end up with more snow in its state than any part of Ohio, according to this GFS forecast. And this is for Sunday, January 13th. So Saturday into 13th. January 12th into January 13th. At least the snowstorm that we're expecting here this time is on the weekend and should not affect any school or any work type situations. But also in the northwest, watching another low pressure system, a huge one, bombard the west coast, and it overtakes the entire state of California, moves south, and tries to get its act together in the southwest. Now, high pressure dominates early of next week, January 16th. But another low pressure system on the way for, once again, Northern California, Washington, and Oregon. Snow on the higher elevations. Meanwhile, on the 17th, we have another system that's trying to get its act together, similar to the one that we're going to experience this weekend. So we're seeing a pattern here in some of these storms, and it's too far out to really tell, but that storm looks like it could do a repeat, except go up into the northeast instead of exit out the Atlantic states, because this storm this weekend coming up is mainly going to affect Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, the East Coast. It's not going to go up into the northeast. This storm later in the month looks like it has a chance. And then again on the 19th, another low pressure system tries to start trouble once again. I do believe the air will be cold enough in the northeast. This could be another snow system to watch as well. Look at that. Parts of northern Maine, you guys are going to get pummeled by this on January 22nd. Meanwhile, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, you will see snow showers as well. And finally, well, I spoke too soon. By the 23rd, another system hitting the northwest. Also, another snow system hitting the northeast. Taking a look at temperatures now. It's going to be a mixed bag. Right now, we're seeing 30s and upper 30s, low 40s. But that will change after Wednesday of this week. Here comes that cold air diving in from the Arctic into parts of the northeast and the eastern part of the United States. Meanwhile, the rest of the country stays average temperatures, maybe slightly above. But here is the first invasion of that Arctic air, especially in the northeast, upstate New York. We will see lows in the single digits starting Thursday, Friday, and possibly again on Sunday as well. And this cold air, this is the first shot. All right? Through the 13th, the 15th, and all the way through the 15th. But we start to see temperatures trying to make a rebound here on the 16th of January before the next shot of Arctic air comes through the northeast and possibly the Great Lakes, Ohio, Michigan, and parts of the northern plains as well. Still trying to fight for some kind of normalcy on the 20th, but once again, that cold air will make its way towards the lower 48 by the 22nd of January, and we're talking negative temperatures here, possible once again. This time, we could see parts of the Midwest getting a piece of the sub-zero temperatures as it appears on the 23rd of January. We see negative values in Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota. So this is still quite a ways out, but this has been predicted for a few weeks. Late to mid to late January, we would start to see possible severe weather conditions for the east and the northeast and parts of the south as well. That right now looks like it's starting to take place. And that is why we saw in that article from the Weather Channel where they were talking about how right now we are on track to still see a snowy, wintry, cold February here late January and early February, possibly into early March at this point. Taking a look at we want to look at snowfall. Here we are tomorrow into Thursday. Into the weekend, mainly seeing a lot of snowfall across the northeast, and then that one snow I was talking about on the 12th and 11th that emerges from the southwest, dumps a few inches across Missouri, Illinois, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky gets the majority of this. Like I said, Ohio looking at anywhere from 1 to 5 inches possible. North Carolina, Virginia, heavier snowfall amounts there up to a foot. This is by Monday of next week. And this goes out a little bit further to the 17th of January. So a little bit more snowfall in this part of the country, the eastern part, the northeast, parts of the south. And also what that does when we have snowpack, and it's going to hang around because it's going to stay cold, especially after this Wednesday. We won't see any more temperatures hanging around close to freezing after this coming Wednesday for the east and the northeast, as temperatures will be definitely cold enough, highs in the teens, lows in the single digits at some point. So when you have snow on the ground, colder temperatures, that's a possibility on a clear night that we could see the possibility of temperatures hitting sub-zero in some spots, especially in the areas that are looking at about a foot of snow to come here in the next 10 to 12 days. Looking at our ocean temps, look at this, guys. That area near Hawaii continues to drop like a rock. We are starting to see few 26 yellow areas on this El Niño map. All right, check this out. North Atlantic, it's acting erratic like always, but look at this. We're already starting to show another dip in the El Niño 3-4 region. Now, it could spike back up, but if it continues this trend like it usually does, we are looking at another slight drop in temperatures in the El Niño 3-4 index. It's almost as if this El Niño is not even going to happen, remain even just neutral. And what happens next year with La Niña? Do we get to that even colder La Niña next year? Is 2020 really going to be that winter we have to absolutely watch? And we're talking about lower solar activity, even lower by 2020. Some say that's the peak of this minimum, is 2020. So with the possibility of La Niña and peak low solar activity, I'm starting to see the big picture now and why so many folks think that we're still just in the appetizer mode right now. We haven't even seen the main course. I showed you this. Yeah, okay, that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Mari, did you want to say hello to anybody in the chat? I'd like to actually find my device.
Are you gonna? I don't know. You can use mine, Jake.
All right.
If you want to say hi to everyone. I don't know. I didn't take notes. I'm not on my laptop, so thanks for bearing with my typos. I'm just on my phone in the chat. A lot of interesting talks. A lot of people new to the channel. I see a lot of new faces, and people are sharing where they're from, what the weather's like there, some
awesome
emergency tips, and all kinds of mishmash. So hello to everyone in the chat. I'm glad everyone's excited about the website, because I've been geeking out about it.
She's working
Jake,
hard.
I mean, it's like a labor of love. I'm very passionate about developing it and making it, you know, a beautiful thing for people to use. So
she's
it's
put a lot of man hours into it. That's
what
for sure.
I'm excited about is when you look at the grandsolarminimum.com, I'm just excited to see where it's at, but I know where it's going, and you guys are going to just love it with all the content that we're going to have. It's going to be amazing.
We also have 2 authors for our websites. The Starman will be contributing, and also is Penelope another?
I think Penelope.
She also has the ability to do so.
Know, you know how much time they have, but I just figured I'd add a couple authors to the site. I know Starman, he always is posting things on Twitter. He's not really a big fan of making videos.
Well, and they're not expected to post every day or anything like that. They have access because we value their input towards the education of what's happening right now. And both of these people, we find a lot of good information from those two. So this is not a job detail for these two. They have access to our website to write certain articles when they feel the need to. So we do appreciate the work that we get from all of our people in our community as well.
And I just like to remind people there is a GSM social, so you can sign in with your account and make friends with other people on the GSM site. It's all a work in progress, so you know, if you want to help me beta test it, sign up now. If you don't want to, you just wait and you'll see where it goes from there. But right now I'm pretty happy. But there's probably about 20 other things that I'm going to be adding to it. So the content that we're going to have on the website when it comes to entry-level learning about the Grand Solar Minimum all the way to the advanced, you know, technical scientific papers and research behind it, it's going to be leveled for everyone to get something out of, follow, and enjoy. I'm excited. Jake.
Well, you've definitely put in a lot of hours. I'm witness to that. I want to say hello to Rob, Ian. Thank you for coming in tonight. Boost, hello. Also, a couple of new faces that I saw earlier before the show even started. Juana McWirt, thank you for tuning in tonight. Matt Williams, he was a baseball player for the Giants. Maybe he could be that Matt Williams. I don't know.
You're a big sports fan.
Oh, yeah.
Jake?
So hopefully it's Matt Williams from the Giants.
I'm thinking about getting
John,
that Mr. Rogers
Desert, hello.
sweater I saw on the advert.
Doug,
brown sweater.
greeting Miles. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We appreciate all the support we see here in the chat. That's going to do it for us tonight. Guys, we are tentatively going to be on the air Wednesday night. Actually, I can guarantee that. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, guys, stay safe out there, and we will talk soon. Take care.